All right, Shalom. You reached the He Prayed channel. My name is Isaac Mawath. But first and foremost, I want to say, call Halayim Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai Bahashem Harakh. Double honors to the apostles and elders, 7:13:19, where I learned this truth from, and who rule well. Salutations to the Bakiyar, the elect, the 144,000. That's 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel consist of you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous of America. The 144,000 being the governing body within the one-third. The rest of the one-third comprises of elect men, women, and children. Shalom to those Israelites scattered due to the diaspora and also the triangular trade. So our people come looking like different ethnicities, having various complexions. So this is not a black thing. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites. We're just Hebrew Israelites. Shalom to those that die in this truth. It says the dead should be raised up first. Those that will be accompanying Yahweh Shah in his return, including our King, King Mashah, who is King David. And as always, it's an honor and privilege, honor and blessing to continue to do this work. The water Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shah Bashim, Harakh for answering my prayers and permitting me to do such. Baba Kashah, Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shah Bashim, Harakh allowed us to be an edifying lesson to at least one member of the elect. This is from apnews.com. It says immigration officers asserting sweeping power to enter homes without a judge's warrant. Memo says, and you see they're confronting, looks like a Judite woman, so-called people of color, reading. It says federal immigration officers are asserting sweeping power to forcibly enter people's homes without a judge's warrant. According to internal immigration and customs enforcement memo obtained by the Associated Press, making a sharp reversal of long-standing guidance meant to respect constitutional limits on government searches, which the Constitution was effectively done away with the passing of the Patriot Act. Esau plans things decades in advance, which the spirit has been out that he's running late. He's in a mad dash to get this new world order built. And that's the reason why you see things moving at warp speed, because he knows that he has but a short time. This is Revelation chapter 12, verse 12. It says, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Which is speaking about those that are in the spirit world, because they don't have to, partake in the wrath of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah on earth. And also, it represents those that are in this truth, that have the Torah, the exemption from judgment, as their promise that the evil day will not touch them. Right? Let me see if I can think it's a. Okay, let me go to first. That's for. Just bear with me real quick. This is First Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 9. It says, for the Most High have not appointed us to wrath. So the elect, the 1/3 are not appointed to wrath. Sort of similar to what happened in Martazarium, which they call Egypt. Dealing with the blood being on the doorpost. Right now, the blood symbolizes this truth. And this truth being on the post represents in your mind now. So those that have this truth, you know, Yahweh Bash and Yahweh Shah didn't appoint onto them wrath. It says, but to obtain salvation by R or the one, Yahweh Shah Hamashiach. But to obtain salvation. So going back to Revelation 12 and 12, it says, woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, right? Because, there's going to be a lot of destruction that is going to take place. They got weapons that they can detonate in the sea, and those weapons can contaminate the sea. Just as they have weapons that can destroy the earth and contaminate the earth. It says for the devil, now the spiritual or the earthly counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, is, the children of Esau, the children or the sons of the wicked, that started calling themselves white in 1681 due to the Bacon rebellions, which the Most High have been having a spirit on me to always emphasize that, So these are the devils, but it also encompasses all those that are abating them, that are associating with or associating themselves with them. So you even have Jakes out there that is doing the bidding of this man's system. It's come down onto you. Now, part of this is dealing with these ICE agents, man. That which is a sign in itself. Doesn't it not speak about Jerusalem being compassed with armies? Now, to clarify, this happened 2,000 years ago. But as the scriptures say, there's no new thing under the sun. The same people that were before are here now. So these same so-called white people are the same ones that had you in hardcore chattel slavery, man. The ones that were cutting your rod off and having them as keepsakes, as souvenirs, or making furniture out of your skin. Using your baby head for amusement games at the carnival, among other atrocious things that they tell you, get over it. They tell you all the wickedness that they done onto you to get over it, which shouldn't make you want to do anything but, kind of clench your fists and go even harder in this truth for Yahweh Bashim Yahweh, because we know that our efforts ain't going out void or in vain for nothing. But this is Luke chapter 21, verse 20. It says, and when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies. And that's what we're starting to see, because, Jerusalem is a people before it's a place. And right now, the people of Jerusalem is being compassed about by the Gestapo armies of the Fourth Reich, which is America, man. It says, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. So we see the signs, man. We see the prophecies, and they're pushing the trip or the sea hip expediently. Or as T.I. would say, expeditiously. Um, so going back to Revelation 12, verse 12, it says, "For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he had but a short time." Right. So that's why he's passing all these different legislations. He's wetting his tongue, right? Going back to his legislations to go ahead and make a move on you, man. Which the modern day Assyrian is dealing with America, right? It says Assyria is the Most High's instrument. So really, the Heavenly Father Yahweh is using you sons of the wicked as an instrument to bring about His wrath and also His mercies. And in return, after He's done, He's going to destroy you, put you in 1,000 years of slavery, and then exterminate you. But this is Isaiah chapter 10, verse 1. It says, "Woe," which means destruction, "unto them that decree unrighteous decrees." And a decree is a law, legislation, you know. And they're passing all these different laws to renege on the previous agreements they had with the so-called American people, which the Constitution was really written for the rich elite bankers, you know. And then they decided to incorporate the rest of you so-called white people because they didn't want you to side. I'm speaking about, what they call, the Irish and the Italians. They didn't want you to side with the Negroes, which were the true tribe of Judah. That's why they were sold as Hebrew slaves. So this the Constitution really is just for the elite, and the elite don't need the Constitution, man, because they're above it. They're above the law that they constructed. But yet that those decrees affect you and me. It says in that right grievousness. So going into draconian, they write draconian legislation to inflict suppression, or not suppression, but oppression upon you people, man. That's why in the scriptures it says, "How hath the oppressor ceased?" Because eventually this damn devil's gonna get destroyed, man. Which that eventually is gonna happen real soon. They don't need Yahweh Shem Shah doesn't need them to go all the way to 2030 or 2029 or 2028. You know, they might issue the chip or the sea hip before the Passover, man. Because all it's gonna take is them going into Iran, shutting down the Strait or Hormuz, and having so-called terrorist attacks in the United States, to justify the premise of making a C-hit mandatory to prove your identity, to make sure you're not an enemy combatant, right? Which is all planned out. It says which they have prescribed, right? Going back to, there are certain plans, man, where, they plan these certain things to take place on earth. Woe to the oppressors. This is Micah chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity," devising or scheming, you know, things contrary to how you're supposed to walk in the eyes of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Because, iniquity is sins upon sins, right? It says, and work evil upon their beds, right? Because, they think about these things as, they hit in the sack. How can they get their jollies off as far as, what wicked act they can commit, or, what they could set up to undermine an individual or a nation. It says when the morning is light, they practice it. So as soon as they get up, man, that's why these motherfuckers are up at like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning starting their day, man. They ain't wasting no time to execute those evil thoughts, to implement those evil thoughts. Just like that bitch that was, breaking the legs of Jake infants, man. She was thinking about that all the time. Oh, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna do it. Fuck these N babies. And what? She didn't even barely even get a scratch of time. And that just shows you that they still think of you so-called blacks as only 3/5 of a human being, man. It says because it is in the power of their hand, right? Because the Most High set them up to rule. And they covered fields, and within those fields are resources, and they want them and take them by violence, through their military and houses. And they're going to be starting to take you people's houses, man. You're going to confiscate your houses, things that are inside your houses, and, also you. And take them away, so they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. Right. Because, they say that we're just, tree swingers from the Congo. All while they're identifying themselves with all of our history and all of the world's time periods, man. Because really, they don't have no fucking culture. So they got to be everyone else. Why is a Temanite or German, talking about he's an Aryan when that came from East India? That came from Elam. And really, the name of Iran means the land of the Aryans. So what are they talking about, man? Because they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. It says, therefore, thus saith Yahweh, behold, against his family do I devise the evil. So the Most High is plotting against you, damn devils. That's why to those that have an inkling of, what's going on, they see the errors that this damn devil is committing through Donald J. Trump. It says, from which ye shall not remove your necks, because you're not going to be able to wiggle your ass out of those nuclear missiles hitting this place, man. And also the nations of the North Country are going to siege America, that nothing goes in and nothing comes out. So to me, that would mean that America's military is going to get its ass handed to it. Because why? Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua decides the battle, or the battles. It says, neither shall you go haughtily meaning arrogant, for this time is evil. It's going to be so bad that Esau ain't going to have an answer to it, man. In that day shall one take up a parable against you and lament with the doleful lamentation and say, we be utterly spoiled. And that's how these nations are reacting. Because America, through Esau, is exhibiting the same characteristics of a colonial empire, man. that goes around and taking everybody's shit like a Debo. It says, he have changed the portion of my people. How have we removed it from me? Turning away, he have divided our fields. Yeah, he comes in sneakily. He's a sneaky snake, you know? Going back to Isaiah chapter 10, verse 2, it says to turn aside the needy, which the needy are the Israelites. And, a decade ago, thank you for the correction. You know, I have a spirit that is, or that delights in being corrected more so than, you just talking your bullshit that, a lot of it's not even true anyway. It's just what you think or what you perceive to be the truth. And it turns out that a lot of you're wicked as fuck anyway. It says to turn aside the needy from judgment and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey and that they may rob the fatherless. And that's what these damn devils do. And they're doing it to you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous. And what will you do in the day of visitation? Right, when Yahweh Shah visits you. And in the desolation which shall come from far, which is those thermonuclear missiles and also the chariots with their real laser weapons. It says, to whom will ye flee for help? And where will you leave your glory? Because America's going to get wiped off the face of the earth. They're saying this country and pointing at that country and pointing the country over there, and pointing to the country behind the back room, that they're all going to get wiped off the face of the earth. But it's going to be them that receives that judgment. And in another dimension, they've already been destroyed. You know? So this is Isaiah chapter 59, verse 19. It says, so shall they fear the name of Yahweh from the west, which is the western hemisphere. And we are in the western hemisphere. That's why they call it the western world, which is ran by Esau. And his glory from the rising of the sun, because that's where he's going to return. He's going to return from the east. When the enemy, which is these Edomites and their armies, shall come in like a flood. So we're in a time in which brothers are going to be getting spiritual powers, man. You know, this is just them getting the tub warmed up, man. Sometimes you run the cool water. You're kind of like, oh, I don't know. Certain people do it different. Sometimes I guess sometimes when I clean with cold water first, and then I use hot water just to get things wet. But I think the real analogy is the one that brothers use now is the Most High turning up the faucet. I used to say that a lot, and also I used to say cracking his knuckles before he gets to working on a place. Right? It says, the spirit of Yahweh shall lift up a standard against him. And that standard is going to be the angels. And the men with spiritual powers. Right? Which I believe this is the second video in a day that I did brought out this scripture, because this scripture is speaking, man. And I'm not the only one that's bringing out these scriptures. So these scriptures are speaking right now, man. This is Second Ezra chapter 16, verse 68. It says, "For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude," which that's that those armies, "is kindled over you, and they shall take away certain of you and feed you, being idle, being stationary, with things offered unto idols," which is going to be that sea head. "And they that consent, those that are agree to it, unto them shall be had in derision, in ridicule or mockery." You're going to be mocked. "And in reproach, and trodden underfoot. For there shall be in every place," and in, because a lot of you that think, "Oh, well, I'll just, submit to these people," they're going to put you in those gas chambers, man. They got rooms that have gas outlets in it to gas you. And then, that's how they preserve your organs, because, that's what these sickos think they need in order to live forever, man. You saw the narration of that in the movie Get Out. They wanted to, steal part of, brains or Jake's eyes, so on and so forth, thinking that was going to allow them to achieve immortality. Because deep down inside, they know what's up. It says, "For this, they just trying to fuck around and find out with Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua, man." And low key, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua wants them to, so he can get his praise and his glory. It says, "For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua," which, went into this too, is basically an uprising. It says, "They shall be like mad men, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua," which is you Israelites. And why is that? Because, they are passing these laws where they can confiscate your house and confiscate your belongings. "Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as the gold in the fire." And that's all going to start with the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and those with the same doctrine, man. It says, "Hear, O ye my beloved, saith Yahweh Shai, behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same. Be ye not afraid, neither doubt, for the Most High is your guide." Right? So the elect of the nation of Israel, you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous, you're going to be guided. So I'm not going to read the whole article because it's a lot. But basically, as the title says, they're asserting sweeping power to enter homes without a judge's warrant, man. And also, J.D. Vance hinted at absolute immunity on the federal level. So, with that, I hope at least one brother of the elect was edified, and I'm going to say shalom.